Okie doke. So if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you've seen this image before. It's a rough outline of where my time in my weekly routine is spent. Things like study, brand, and meal prep can be moved around depending on the time. Example, if I'm running low on my red meat or sweet potato, I'll do a meal prep Monday night instead of Saturday night after gym. If my exam is soon, I won't do anything for the brand and I'll use that time for study. If the semester hasn't started yet, then I won't do any study. I'll only do brand work. I just added study here to show you the mix of my grind. Otherwise, anyone seeing this image might not realize I am still doing formal study, my post-tertiary CPA qualification. And if I have a social event on any given night, I'll obviously just ditch the outlined plan, whether that be working on the brand, study, gym, or meal prep. Sometimes my supermarket job shift changes too. Sometimes I cover the assistant manager of my department on Saturday, so I'll start and finish an hour earlier, or cover my department manager on a Sunday, so I'll work 7 till 4 instead of 1 till 10. But on a standard week with my normal supermarket shifts, no social events / extra work done like my laser hair removal appointment or Botox appointment, no exam period, this is what my routine looks like. Now, I never meticulously planned out this routine. What I did was basically see what my work hours were like, then slotted gym around that, then worked everything else around that. And the result is the routine you see before you. But I'll talk about structuring your own routine regardless. Perhaps you can get some ideas of how to plan out your own schedule. So in this video, I'll talk about how to structure a more productive routine. Keep in mind that ultimately, you're the only one who can optimize your own routine. I'm just sharing some ideas for you to incorporate into your own routine. So I'm going to structure your routine with 5 stats in the game of life in mind: career, money, aesthetics or gym, brand, and relationships. I don't have the investor stat since you can multitask with that, like listening to stock market information whilst driving or going for a walk, or whilst cooking your dinner or in the shower, etc. It's no different from when you'd listen to music or a podcast. If you were renovating an investment property, that work would come under the investor stat, but that won't apply to most people, and even in that case, it would be just like my exam period. It's a temporary change in your routine, and it's a means to an end. Like when I have my exam period, I'll take some days off my jobs, I won't gym, no brand stuff, etc., but it's not a permanent change to the routine. Eventually, my exam is done, and eventually, you're done with renovating the home. So first, we will focus on the money stat. You will start your optimal schedule by slotting in your work first. The reason is, when you're starting out at work, you don't have any power to choose your hours. You have to work around your job. If you intend on going to the gym between 6 p.m. and 7:30 p.m., but your work shift is 5 p.m. till 10 p.m., are you going to tell your work to work around your gym routine? No. If you do, you won't get any shifts at work. If you work casual shifts, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, you're going to have to work around that. But obviously, I can give a rough guideline for sporadic shifts. If you do have casual shifts, just be prepared to move your study times and gym schedule around. Like me, for example, if I start/finish an hour earlier on a Saturday, I just have my gym session start an hour earlier. I just go to the gym straight after work. I don't go home for an hour, then go back to the gym so my gym times fit with my rough schedule. The reason I start gym around 5:15 p.m. on a Saturday night is because I usually finish work around 5 p.m. and by the time I leave the store, walk to the car park, drive to the gym and get changed, it's about 5:15 p.m. If I'm 5 minutes late because I got stuck talking to coworkers after I finished, who cares? It's not a strict schedule. It's just roughly where my time is spent. I'm assuming you will work though. If you're like me, you didn't get shit from your parents. I didn't even get pocket allowance when I was a kid. I remember this video from Men's Maxing. I don't know where he's gone now, but he was saying how he studied 60 hours a week and had 2-hour gym sessions 6 days a week. which is how he got an insane physique and top grades in his useful degree, which was some sort of engineering, I think. And whilst that was impressive, I was like, wait, when do you work? And it dawned on me, I'm like, I don't think he did have a job. Not taking anything away from his achievements, but when you have a job, it eats into the time you could be spent at the gym or studying. So it makes top grades and a top physique that much less attainable for most people. Also, the money stat is separate from the career stat here, since I'm assuming your part-time job isn't related to your career. Example, when I was at uni, I didn't get paid to study, nor did I get paid for my unpaid internship at the tax office. However, I did get paid for working at my supermarket job, which is unrelated to my career. Nowadays, my accounting job is both a career stat increase and a money stat increase, since it's accumulating time in the industry, which feeds into your resume. You know how jobs say, 3 years of experience required, 5 years of experience required? That's what this is. Every day is one step closer to another week of experience. Each week is closer to another month of experience. Each month is one step closer to another year of experience. Once you've had enough of those, you've fulfilled the requirements required for many higher paying roles. But you need to pay your time debt. You need that accumulation phase. So, each day I work at my accounting job is both a career stat increase and a money stat increase, since I obviously get paid for that. My weekend supermarket job is only a money stat increase though, since that job doesn't really have many transferable skills to my career. It has some, but I kind of have to stretch the job description on the resume, and I'll go over my new updated resume in a future video. Now, if you are at uni, I'd strongly recommend trying to find a job that has some transferable skills to your main career. Example, if you're going to work in something related to accounting/finance, try looking at bank teller jobs. I don't know too much about these. Maybe you could only find full-time roles, which obviously makes study hard. But if you can find a part-time job, go for them. Maybe they're not a one-to-one correlation, but they're a lot more correlated than my supermarket job, lol. But when I was at the university workshops learning about how to make resumes, how to perform in job interviews, making cover letters, making a LinkedIn profile, etc., I learned that a lot of employers actually look for McDonald's on your resume. At least they did back in 2018 and in my region. But I doubt this is region specific, since the same university career guidance workers had worked in Melbourne before, so it's not just specific to that city that my university was in. The reason they look for McDonald's is it shows you can handle high pressure environments, but also because there's a lot more opportunities to work in management or be a senior leader at Macca's. You can become a crew trainer quite easily. Whereas at the supermarket, the only real sort of part-time/casual basis they offer that has any sort of seniority is being a supervisor on front end, which is the registers, or a duty manager, which used to be a role that could be on some sort of part-time/casual basis. And this was basically the person in charge of running the non-register related part of the store at some point, usually around the night times, and it's mostly the stacking shelves department of the store. I don't think this role exists anymore, not at my company at least. My department, for example, which used to be the deli and is now just stacking the refrigerated shelves, has no sort of supervisor or duty manager job title. On my resume, I've just botched the wording and self-labeled myself as senior staff member. It's not an actual job title offered at all, but I can at least justify myself by the fact I cover the managers sometimes and know how to run the department on any given shift. But it's not a formal job title, whereas I've heard McDonald's have a legitimate job title for this, which helps you land interviews in some cases. Now, don't go applying to McDonald's for the sake of your career. You're going to have to gather your own intel related to what employers look for the career you're going for. I'm just sharing what I've heard employers look for from people who used to work for said employers. I doubt this would work in something as competitive as investment banking, for example. I don't know, the investment banking scene here in Australia is tiny, so I don't know what they look for. They could look for transferable roles/skills that a job like Macca's provides, but I can't say for sure. Regardless, I'd imagine a job as a bank teller is more transferable. So do your own homework on if that can help you or not. You could also look at any sort of admin role too. I'm sure the paperwork involved in that role transfers over to many office jobs, but you'll have to find that out for yourself. So the point of that side tangent is to show you that whilst you're at uni, you're probably going to have to split the career stat and the money stat apart. You might have to work a job unrelated to your career like I did. However, if you can pick a job that also helps your career, go with that. But that opportunity may not exist for you. Not sure if it didn't exist for me, but I didn't get my shit together until halfway through my degree anyway, so I nerfed my resume by not switching on earlier. So back to the schedule, you'll slot in work into your routine, and work is a non-negotiable. If you can get a part-time contract with set hours/days, great stuff. If you can't, you'll need to be prepared to work odd shifts and have to change your gym/study times. Like, I can't tell you to only work jobs that provide set hours. Example, I can't say only work jobs that give you night hours, like a waiter at a restaurant or night fill at a supermarket, or morning jobs only, like, I don't know, some warehouse jobs or cafes. Find whatever job suits you best, since you're going to need money, and adjust your life accordingly. When I was at uni, I basically only did night shifts for the most part. Nowadays, my nights are my spare time. Once upon a time, I was only really working during the night. Nowadays, I only really work during the day. My schedule has changed. You need to realize that whatever schedule you're making is going to be temporary. You won't be doing the same thing in 10 years. It's a means to an end, but in the meantime, you need to have some sort of game plan. Now, next up, gym. I have gym next instead of career, since with study, you're never really done with study, are you? Like, it doesn't matter how much study you do, you can always do more. However, with gym, it gets to a point where you get diminished returns and even regressing returns if you go too hard. So, we'll slot in an appropriate amount of time for gym and go from there. Now, I go to the gym 4 days a week these days, simply because it just suits my current routine better, and I need time for the other stats in the game of life, like brand and study. If I went to the gym 6 days a week, that's even less brand growth and less time for study around my non-exam periods. Like, I knuckle down during exam periods, but I still do some study during the rest of the semester. The reason I don't just shorten my workout times from each of my 4 sessions and spread it across 6 sessions, which theoretically results in the same amount of time spent in the gym, is because 1, convenience. I'd rather make less trips to the gym per week. And some nights after work, it's nice to just go straight home and work on a new YouTube video, for example. But 2, even going to the gym itself eats up some time. My gym isn't right next door to my house. It's a detour from the office to my house. It's sort of close to my supermarket job, but I only work there 2 days a week, and one of those days, Sunday, I don't even go. Unless I use the Sunday morning to make up for a missed Saturday session or something. It's approximately a 10-minute detour from the highway that takes me home to the gym, and then it's another 5-minute detour on the way back home. There's a back road that leads to my hometown, but if you consider the time it takes me to drive on the highway where I turned off versus from the gym to my home, it's only an additional 5 minutes, so an extra 15-minute commute for going to the gym. Plus, there's the shower I take after gym. I don't shower after my office job because I don't need to. I shower every morning before work anyway, so that saves some time. Whereas if I went to the gym after work, regardless of how long/short the workout is, I'd still shower afterwards. So all that is to say, the reason I gym 4 days a week and not more is it aligns with my schedule better since it allows my career and brand stat to grow faster. Some days it's nice to just finish work and go home, and it's more time efficient to do more volume whilst I'm already at the gym instead of making a separate trip on another day, despite the fact that the volume I do on the back half of my workout isn't as effective/efficient as it could be if I had done it on a separate day. The diversified grind, You can't maximize all stats at once. You'll need some balance. In this case, instead of gymming 6 days a week and maximizing the gains I get from gym, I'm making a trade-off. I'm slightly diminishing my gym progress/aesthetic stat, and in exchange, I'm enhancing my brand stat and career stat with those extra hours. Plus, it's not like the gains I'd receive from working out a little more would be exponential, or even noticeable either. I feel I have a great trade-off on time. The extra hour I spent at the gym might do nothing for my gains, but that extra hour is quite useful for getting another video out or more study time. Now, for the sake of this rough schedule, let's just say you're working out for 1.5 hours 5 times a week. Maybe you do more, maybe less, I don't know, but let's just use this as an example. We'll just slot gym into these rough time slots. My personal suggestion is to go to the gym earlier in the day when you have a day off work. I found that I don't study as well knowing I have gym later on, because it's like I'm excited for this, or it's like I still have something to do. Like I can't sit here and study all day because I still got something to do later. And I found I kind of have some energy after gym to study, or I'm more motivated. It's like, wow, I just finished gym. I'm closer to becoming fit as fuck. Imagine if I was also smart and well-educated and had a good job too. Hell yeah, let's go after it. Time to study. So that's my recommendation. Maybe you don't work like this. Maybe you're tired after gym, so you'd rather do your workout at night. Maybe you de-stress at the gym after study. Your life is your own. Suit yourself. But for this example, I put gym earlier on in the day. So now your schedule looks like this. Pretty productive, but there's still more slots for your other stats. Next up, career stat. Now, I haven't included any mandatory lectures here. As I said before how work was non-negotiable. Maybe you have the same thing with your university degree, like you have a prac that requires in-person attendance. If that's the case, you obviously slot that into your routine and take shifts at work that work around your university schedule, then work gym around that. I'm just assuming you're like me and were able to do lectures online/catch up on lectures later. I can't run a sample schedule for everyone, mind you. So now that you've gotten your source of income sorted, and now that you've gotten your gym routine sorted, now you slot your studies around that. Seems odd to be focusing on your career after your part-time job in gym, but I listed reasons as to why this is the case earlier. So I've just allowed for 20 hours of university in this rough routine. Maybe you can get away with less study, maybe you need more, but just roughly use this as a guide. If your career path doesn't require a super competitive academic transcript, aka the higher the grades, the higher the chance of getting the role, it's easier to get away with less study. It's like what I said with gym. There gets a point where your return on investment is diminished and even hindered, although I don't see how too much study is a hindrance. Whereas with gym, obviously if you do too much, your body cannot physically recover from it. Worst case with too much study, besides any mental burnout, is you could have used that time for other stuff. My current CPA studies, for example, only require a pass. Employers literally do not ask for your transcript. They only care if you have it or not. I see others on LinkedIn/in the WhatsApp groups who get really good grades, although they're not super common. And although I am impressed and don't mean to take anything away from them, I can't help but feel you could have been better off studying less and doing something else with that time. Since at the end of the day, you and I are both CPAs or future CPAs. You're not an A-grade CPA and I'm a passing CPA. We're both CPAs. But I guess with that said, CPA works on a scaling score system and you can never guess what will be on the exam. So maybe the prior point is moot, but my ultimate point is you don't have to use every spare moment on your studies in many cases. If you're going after a super competitive career path, I'd suggest allocating as much time to study, but don't forget about earning some income in the meantime and spending some time on your fitness. So that's money, gym/aesthetics, and career taken care of in your routine. Now, the remaining 2 stats are brand and relationship. I'm allocating time to a relationship specifically since I'd imagine you need frequent contact with your partner to have a healthy relationship. Whereas I'm sure you can go 3 weeks at a time without seeing any of your friends, for example. And even then, I'm assuming you'd be friends with some people at uni or at work or maybe even the gym, so you'd already see/interact with them more frequently than once every 3 weeks anyway. And a brand is just not necessary. You can make do without this stat, but it can help you in the game of life if you get it right. I made a video that mentions this in more detail. The purpose of this video is about your routine. So leftover time is for brands/relationships. I didn't include a designated time for social events/activities, since that kind of just pops up whenever, hey. Maybe you want to do a Friday night event or a Saturday night event with your friends every week. I don't know. But in this example, I'm not slotting in time for that. Whenever it does pop up, just write off something in your routine. Example, I have a friendship group whereby Thursday nights work best for them. It's not ideal for me, since it means I need to ditch my traditional Thursday arm day. But if we are going to hang out, the hangout needs to be on a Thursday. So I imagine something similar works with your friends. But in a relationship, there's like date night, which is usually a recurring thing/has a pattern, hence why you allocate time for it in your schedule. Again, I don't know your circumstances. I mentioned in my recent Adonis School slander video that you can't rely on someone else to tell you how to go about your relationship. Same here. I don't know your relationship, you do you. But I am just assuming you have some recurring routine with your spouse. And if you're a single Pringle like me, just use that extra time for your brand or chilling out or something. Or maybe you have a recurring thing with your friends instead. So, brand time is used after the first 3, since results from the first 3 are guaranteed. Like, you can't gym properly and not grow. Your physiology forces your body to change. You can't go to work and not have more money next paycheck. Your employer can get jailed for that. And with a career, providing you actually study properly, maybe you fail the exam since they can ask some bullshit questions, but I doubt you will need to spend like 30 hours a week studying. They can't ask totally random questions. If I study all about apples all semester, they won't ask me a question about oranges in the exam. Although it does feel that way sometimes. Whereas with a brand, there isn't a guarantee. Otherwise, for example, every YouTube channel would be greatly successful, or everyone's dropshipping business would generate heaps of revenue. For gym, you progressively overload and eat more calories than you consume, you'll grow. For money/a job, you show up to work, you do your job, you clock out, you get paid a week or 2 later. For a career, you study what they talk about in class, that same shit shows up on the exam, you pass the exam, you get an extra credit onto your resume, you get enough of those credits, and you get your degree. For a brand, I'm less optimistic. If you put in work, it should grow. Like my channel, for example, I had 0 subscribers once upon a time, and I had that for ages too. So results should eventually show, but in my case, I've still made $0 from this channel, despite hacking away at it for years. It's not like I was full-time at it, nor was I doing everything by the YouTube playbook. Example, clickbait titles and shorter videos. But you can just look at all the other channels you're subscribed to. If working at a brand name was guaranteed to get you 1 million subs and 10K in income per month or whatever, then why aren't they all like that? I'm just using YouTube as an example for brand. You can use other social media accounts like Instagram and TikTok. They take way less time to create content. I just use YouTube since I love to yap, and the longer stuff suits me better. Could you imagine me trying to debunk Adonis School via TikTok? And it doesn't have to be social media, like whatever online business you can think of. But there's a reason why many businesses fail. But I won't elaborate further since I've already talked about it before, and you could also probably figure that out yourself. My point is, a brand/business deserves the least amount of your time, since it's the least likely to pay off. Yes, the rewards can be far greater, but the odds just don't work in your favor here. It's like making a bet on sports. The favorites never pay that much, since it's expected to happen. The greatest returns on sports betting come with something that is super unlikely to happen. The difference here is you're only playing with a bit of money. In the sense of a career versus a business, you're essentially gambling with your future. If you want to do a business/side hustle, as the name implies, do it on the side once you've done the work required for a stable career and a stable income source. Now, as for a relationship, I've also put this after money, your career, and the gym. The reason is relationships can end, if you can believe that. Some people will say, oh, they ended because they didn't spend enough time together or some other reason, but that's not true. Relationships can end for a variety of reasons. Spending more time together is not a foolproof guaranteed strategy to keep it going. On the flip side, the more time I spend working, the more money I'll have. Yes, I will be spending some of it, but look at my current bank balances, for example. All that time I spent at work has shown up here, and I'm using that for a great investment, but that's not the point of this video. The point is, you can literally see the hard work right here. My work hasn't gone to waste. As for gym, same sort of thing. You can see the results from my time in the gym. Yes, you can start to lose muscle if you don't work out for a while, but you gain it back way faster/easier due to the myonuclei, aka muscle memory. Even if you do lose it, you gain it back quickly. Same with my career. No matter what, I can't lose my degree. I mean, maybe if I get into trouble with the woke police I can, like Jordan Peterson almost lost his registration or some shit a while ago. But my degree can't wake up one day and decides it wants to break up with me. The results from all my study has shown up in my academic records, and now I have this degree for life. Notice how these three are basically guaranteed? That's why they get scheduled in before stuff like the brand and a relationship. Imagine you spend 5 days a week with your girlfriend/boyfriend. You do this for a few years. As a result, you get nowhere with your degree. Now imagine, if you will, you break up with your partner. What do you have to show for those last 3 years of your life? You had memories, sure, but now they're with someone you may now resent. You were living the good life while it lasted, but now there's nothing to show for it. You can't take equity in that relationship and apply it to another relationship. You have to start from scratch, just like a Pokemon Nuzlocke. However, if you had spent most of your time studying in those 3 years, let's say your degree was a 3-year degree, and you also had a partner during that time, but you didn't spend anywhere near as much time together, or create as many memories, or had as much fun bedtimes, but now you break up, what do you have to show for those 3 years? At least you still have a degree to show for it. Even if you did a longer degree, like some doctor-related degree, at least you're still partway through it. Same goes with a brand/business. If your business fails after 3 years of trying, what do you have to show for it? Yeah, maybe some experience or whatever, but at least the person who was studying at uni has a degree/progress in a degree to show for it. And that degree basically can't be taken away, providing they actually finish it, of course. If you're half done and drop out, then yeah, obviously that doesn't mean much, but I'm assuming you'll stick through your degree. Same goes for someone working their way up at their job. Maybe they don't go down the uni or trade path, they just work their way up in retail or something. If they spent 5 days a week for 3 years working instead of spending that with a partner, at least they have experience and probably a lot of money to show for those 3 years. Same with someone who pursued a trade. At the end of the 3 years, they're almost done with their apprenticeship. That's what they have to show for their last 3 years. Let's use myself as an example again. I have applied this exact same logic in my life for the past few years, aka brand work is done after my career, money, and aesthetics are all taken care of. What do I have to show for my career in the past 3 years? Well, progress in my career at work, promotions, experience that is useful in the labour market, and good progress on my CPA studies. What do I have to show for in terms of money? Well, see for yourself. What do I have to show in terms of gym? Again, see for yourself. So let's say I decided to scrap the brand. I give up, I tried, I have nothing to show for it, well, even though I do. What's the worst case scenario here? The worst case scenario is I wasted a bit of time in those 3 years, but I still have good career progress to show for it. I still have a lot of money to show for it, and I still have a pretty fit body to show for it. Flip this. If I spent all my time working on this brand/YouTube channel instead and didn't study my CPA, I quit both jobs and I stopped going to the gym since that's time I could be spent on my YouTube channel. Now after 3 years, what do I have to show for it? Well, I imagine more subs, but I wouldn't have the same subs since without the other stuff, some people wouldn't take me seriously, hence why they wouldn't sub. But let's just say I had 15,000 subs to show for it. Yeah, nice, but how much money does that get you in ad revenue? Depends on the channel's CPM, but it probably doesn't pay as much as my supermarket job does for only working 18 hours a week. And yet, I worked around the clock on the channel. Let's say I gave up after that. Fuck it, I worked so hard and have barely any money to show for it, and only 15,000 subs. Now what do I have to show for those 3 years? I'll tell you, I have barely any money, no career progress, and a shitty flabby body. That's what. I'll drill the point home again, but using a relationship. Let's say I had a girlfriend, and I spent time with her instead of pursuing my CPA studies and working at my supermarket job, and I spent less time at the gym. We break up after 3 years. What do I have to show for it? Now in this case, I still have career experience/progression and at least a somewhat fit body, but not as fit since I spend less time in the gym and more time with her. Let's just disregard the fact I would obviously have gym dates with her. And I also have much less money since I didn't work the second job. But I also have no CPA, which is integral for the higher paying roles in the future. A career, making money, and going to the gym are like a Pokemon game. You have save points/checkpoints, and if you fail, you simply go back to the last Pokemon Center and try again. If I get fired from an accounting job I worked at for 2 years, I still retain the experience I learned in that role, and I can simply go back to the labor market with my skill set and get a new job. Same with money. If I get fired from that same job, it's not like all that money they paid me gets sucked back out of my bank accounts. They paid me, and I still have that money I earned. If I get injured at the gym and can't work out for 3 months, it's not like all those years of gains are just evaporated. Yeah, you regress a little, but you have muscle memory. For all intents and purposes, you just go back to the last Pokemon Center, the last checkpoint, and continue on. Whereas a business and a relationship are like a Pokemon Nuzlocke. For anyone who doesn't play Pokemon, what a Nuzlocke is a different way of playing. There are a few other rules to it, but the main rule I'm focusing on is if a Pokemon faints, it's dead and you can't use it again, whereas in the main game you can just heal it up and get right back to it. And if you lose all your Pokemon in a single battle, the game is over. Whereas in a standard game, you can just go back to the Pokemon Center and you can try again. The other 3 examples are going back to the Pokemon Center and continuing on and trying again. For a business and a relationship, it's a Nuzlocke. AKA, if your business goes under/fails, or you break up with your partner, game over. You have to start again. Like, go through the whole talking phase, getting comfortable with them, learning each other's lingo, starting to like what the other person likes, creating your inside jokes, etc. You can't just transfer that stuff from the old relationship directly to the new relationship, and that's not to mention the other more private bed stuff either. Same with a business. For the most part, if I decided to stop this channel and I started a new one, I'm basically starting from scratch again. It's not like day one, all the watch time I accumulated is set up to that new channel, and all my subs from the old channel carry over. And that's only for YouTube, for example. In an actual business in the real world, generally your clientele can't just transfer over. It comes under phoenixing. Like, if your business fails, presumably it's because you aren't generating enough income to meet your expenses. If you declare bankruptcy and start a new business with fresh debts and carry over your previous clients, that's illegal. There are some ways to structure debts that lets you get away with this.
So one of our biggest recent client successes was a case where they traded for a few years. They had some pretty large contracts with some large telcos. However, they'd had ongoing issues. ATO debt kept racking up. They ended up getting it up to about 1.5 million in ATO debt that they just couldn't get under control. And it was pretty clear that they weren't going to be able to pay it back. We got in early with a really good liquidator that we know. The liquidator coached us and sort of said, all right, do this, don't do this, structure your assets this way. We'd set up a great structure from the start. So we'd split out the employing entity, we'd split out the assets, and then we essentially had the trading income and civil income as two different other arms, all trading out of different companies. This allowed us, when the ATO debt was built up way too much, to essentially cut off one of the arms, the one that had the ATO debt, keep the employees going in the other entity, transfer some of the necessary equipment across to the other plant and equipment entity, and almost keep trading like normal. It's close to illegal phoenixing, but the way we did it was completely legal, all straight through a liquidator. And by choosing our own liquidator and getting in early, rather than letting the ATO nominate their liquidator, we were able to get the best result.
But it's complex and not relevant to this video. So that's why I say career over a business. If you progress in the career stat for 2 years and get fired, you have a checkpoint and you can continue from where you left off. If you progress in the business stat for 2 years and your business fails, you start from the beginning, back to Twin Leaf Town, back to picking your starter from Professor Rowan. There was a saying I heard a while ago, and that was, you can't build equity in a relationship. What this means is, you can't transfer the progress from that relationship into something else. Equity is commonly used in terms of the real estate market. It's basically the profits from your real estate. Chances are, after 5 years of owning real estate, if it's a good investment, it'll have a higher value to it. Same with a stock. If you pick a good stock, it'll probably have a higher value after 5 years. I can use those profits for another investment and continue to compound my wealth. But this doesn't work with a relationship, as I've said. You start from scratch. If I sold my house/stocks, yes, I no longer own a house/that stock, but I have some juicy profits to show for it. But this doesn't apply to a relationship. I hope I've made my point clear. That's why, when you start a schedule of where you spend your time, you slot in your priorities in this order. You need to slot in the money stat/your job first, since you can't pay for stuff without it. Good luck doing stuff without money. And in some cases, you need that money to pay for your education in order for you to get your career anyway. And then you also obviously need that money for your gym membership too, as well as like protein powders and shit. You slot in gym second, since there's a low ceiling on maximizing gym progress, aka 2 hours a week in the gym probably doesn't do a whole lot in terms of aesthetics. 6 to 8 hours a week in the gym probably does a lot. 15 hours a week in the gym probably does more, but the return on investment between 18 and 15 hours probably isn't worth it. Hence why you slot in gym second, since realistically it shouldn't take up that much of your time. That is assuming you're after aesthetics. If you're after performance/being a powerlifter or something like that, different story. In that case, you'd obviously have more time in the gym at the cost of your other stats. You slot in career third, since in terms of study, you're never really done. There's always usually some more study you can do. Realistically, you're never really done with study, so you may as well make sure your money and fitness are taken care of first. You slot in any sort of business/relationship after the other three stats are taken care of, since you always have something to show for your work with those other three. Your work in terms of a business and relationship can sometimes be wasted. So worst case, if you make sure your career, money, and fitness are sorted, the leftover time you spend on a business/relationship is spare time that isn't eating away at the rest of your life, and it's time you'd be spent using on something else that isn't super important anyway. Now, real quick, if you're in high school/doing an apprenticeship, obviously you have your Monday to Friday daytime set. You're either in work or school. Nothing you can do about it. Gym before or after work/school, whatever you fancy. If you're in high school, obviously you can't do much about your shifts you get at work, since you're too inexperienced to be making any sort of demands. Some girl I was talking to at my supermarket job the other day was telling me the same sort of thing. She wanted to change some shifts because she wanted more time to study for her schoolwork, but they didn't really give her much choice in terms of the hours she wanted. It was like either you drop to casual or you keep working your current hours. So you don't have much choice. I can't tell you to only work 3.5-hour shifts on Tuesday and Thursday nights. I don't know what job you have. And you high schoolers will obviously have to fit your study around whatever your routine is. What is your routine? I don't know. I can't give suggestions, but You know what you have to do, so go and do it. This video was mostly for university students, since you guys have the most flexible schedules. As I said before, obviously people already working full-time or people in high school have a pretty rigid weekday routine. If you're an apprentice, you probably don't need to worry about another job. And if you're in high school, what suggestion did you want? Drop out of school or go to school part-time? You have to work with what you're given. Slot work and gym around your school hours and schoolwork. Maybe gym 2 to 3 days during the week and have the other sessions on the weekend. Or maybe try and get a weekend-only job so you can gym during the mornings/nights on the weekdays and save your studies for the weekend before/after your part-time job. It's hard to give any suggestions since I don't want to say only pick weeknight jobs, and now you aren't getting hired anywhere since your prospective workplace wants you on weekends too. So you just have to work with the routine you've got. But for all of you, I'll say it one last time. Make sure your career, money, and fitness are in check before you pour time and effort into any sort of business/relationship. Hope that provided a good guideline on where to allocate your time, and hopefully your routine is now going to be more optimized going forward. Thanks for watching. That is all.